all those discussions that you'll be part of. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
It's been a pleasure having me or being here. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is let's just put up what we are doing right now.
Yes.
Okay, so this is not what we're doing right now. This is what we're doing. So basically, of course, the World Mediators Conference started on 18th June, but 18th May. Oh my God, it's been 18th May. It's gone on. Started on 18th May, goes up till 30th June. And of course, all the sessions are there on YouTube. Just search for Mediator Vikram. And Erin, of course, is going to talk about trauma-informed mediation. Erin, please tell us about the conference and then about later. Then, of course, we'll get into you and the topic, but first about the conference.
I've been very thrilled to participate in the World Mediators Conference, and it's been such an amazing opportunity for so many mediators to come together and talk about such diverse topics. And it's I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference and coming together in the end and talking as a big group in the end about all the things that we've covered. I'm really looking forward to it.
Perfect. So now, Erin, it's about you and then the topic. So please tell us about yourself and then we'll get into the topic.
Sure. My name is Erin Moynahan and I am a conflict resolution specialist. I have worked in the field of supporting those who have developmental disabilities and mental health concerns for many years now. I'm a personal advocate, so I do help people through situations such as the individual education process, conservatorships, those kinds of things. I opened my own business recently called Courageous Engagement. And so my goal is to just help people with conflict resolution and building up their own skills, especially through things like trauma. I have my own history with trauma and my own history with coming through conflict resolution. And I feel like it is something that is very, very dear to my heart to help people get through their conflicts and understand what's going on around them.
Perfect. So now we can get straight into the topic, trauma-informed mediation, please.
Wonderful. So if it's okay, I'd like to.
What I'll do is 1 second. Let's just, of course, Mandy is also here. Mandy, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and then we get into the topic?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a mediator after I tried to be a lawyer, but never felt this shoot very comfortable. So
Mandy, can you try and get the mic closer to the mic?
Yeah,
that'd be much better.
Okay, and I feel very happy to be a mediator. I have found a place that's very comfortable for me, and I'm very happy to meet all these beautiful people in Vikram's mediation circle. I'm happy to meet you, Erin.
I'm happy to meet you as well.
Perfect. So, of course, Mandy has her session after this. So, Erin, trauma-informed mediation. And you can share your screen. You can share your screen.
Wonderful. Perfect. So I'm going to share this. Okay, here we go.
Mandy is going to try various ways to get that mic close to her, but she was not going to hold it. We're almost there. We're almost there. Almost there. It's yes. Now we are there. You want to share this?
Perfect.
Share this. Would you want to go into slideshow mode or?
Yeah. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go. See what Mike, it's just been so slow this morning. Okay. So I wanted to pose the question of what is trauma? And I have found this really great brochure that kind of lays everything out from the National Mental Health Institute. And let's see, it might be easier if I did this one like this. Okay, can everybody, can you see this?
Almost. Yes. Now we can see it.
Okay, cool. So this one has a really great, what does it stem from? How many people are affected annually? And I found these statistics to be very drastic, just in the United States alone. 70% of adults in the United States have experienced some form of trauma or traumatic event. That's 223.4 million people. Over 90% of mental health clients have suffered from trauma in the United States. And these, trauma can stem from all of these things, which I really found this brochure to be amazing. It's very informative. But these things like grief and loss, accidents, childhood neglect, physical, emotional abuse, these things happen every day, not just in the United States, but around the world. And I bring up this topic to say, there's so much conflict going on in the world right now. And this is really an important thing for us as mediators to discuss, how are we going to support people who are in that form of thinking? So we have moved from our prefrontal cortex into our amygdala, and we're really just in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn feeling, and not able to participate fully in a conflict because, we're not rationally thinking when we're in our amygdala. So when I was researching, trauma and mediation, I found John Coleman, and she has a really great model for trauma-informed mediation. And as I was reading the model and going through all of her information, it's a lot of the same things that I've been saying for a long time. When we go into mediation, we have to really consider, is this person going to be able to mediate, right? Do you have anything you want to add before we move on?
No, perfect.
Mandy?
Mandy is busy fixing up for her session. She's doing up slides and
Okay.
everything.
So the 5 steps.
I do that.
Okay,
But
cool.
have my half brain like dolphins.
Wonderful.
1 year to you.
So the 5 steps are very fluid. And, the first one is something that you would do automatically is, try and help this person come back out of their amygdala into their prefrontal cortex thinking so they can be more rational. And so when we're doing that, we're doing a lot of the helping someone to calm down, right? So we're listening actively, we're restating what we hear. We might be naming a feeling at that point, helping them understand their name a feeling. But we're trying to bring down the amygdala, get out of the fear and into thinking. And then once we do that, we can get into empowerment and recognition, because at this point, the person who is, suffering from trauma might not have been provided the recognition that they needed for the trauma that they're feeling, or for whatever feeling is going on inside of them. And providing empathy, attention, and respect during that time empowers this person to recognize that they potentially have choice in what they're going to be doing. So they could have several choices laid in front of them that they're just not able to see. And that can be frustrating and difficult. But Bill Eddy has a really great book called High Conflict Personalities. And that book, kind of supported me in understanding that the empathy, attention, and respect piece is really very important in empowering and helping a person to kind of calm down. And then third, moving into mindfulness of cognition, emotions, and behaviors. So really creating an awareness and of the emotions and behaviors that are going on within the mediation, the thoughts that are going on, and then reframing them into positive or neutral thoughts. And then bringing awareness to resiliency, who was there to help build resiliency in your life? and who can be there for you to continue to build that resiliency in your life. And then the fourth step would be really, determining the ability to mediate. Does this person actually have the ability to walk through this mediation in, the prefrontal cortex with the ability to really consider what's going on around them? Or is this person not able to walk through that trauma and come to a spot where they're able to walk through their emotions and their thoughts during that time? And Dawn was very open in, we might not be able to help mediate during that time. And then fifth is community resources and putting people with the right places and the right people. And so when she put these all in order, it really made sense to me, because this is what I do. And especially for the community resource piece, I really help people put people with the right people in the right organizations and the right situations that they need to be in. So if maybe mediation is not the right fit right now, it could be. And I have a list of people that I would say, maybe if you wanted to work on your mindfulness, there's a really great therapist right down the block. Or, if you wanted to work on your emotions and your behaviors, the right person is right here. The right organization is right here. So those things are, I really find this to be like a whole person approach to mediation. And that's the part that I can appreciate and value. Do either of you have any thoughts on that?
My only thought was that when you said that the person is available down the block or whatever, why can't the person be part of the mediation? Because the process can easily allow someone to come in. Where's the issue? I mean, that's also an expert in a certain area which might be important for the mediation.
Well, and there's that too. So with my business, that's my hope, is that we can do that. But during a mediation, it's up to the person. So if they're okay with having a therapist come in at that moment, that would be excellent. Exactly. If they're not open to that suggestion, then I will suggest there, here's a card. Why don't we call them together? Why don't we?
Well, that's a personal choice of theirs. I'm just saying generally we're talking about it, that these are also people who can be part of the mediation.
Yeah.
We have to explain that to people that this is a process where anyone can come in and we can bring in anyone you want. So I'm trying to say these resources can actually not just be outside resources, they can be inside resources.
Yes, that's my idea as well. I'd like to see a whole person approach to conflict mediation. I'd like to see, it would be my dream to have like a family come to the mediation center, and you have a psychiatrist and psychologist in the room, in their offices in the building, and the family can't decide what to do with breaking apart their family and their children and how they're going to see one another, and maybe they're having a difficult time and can't figure out what to do with the children. And a psychiatrist and a psychologist in the building is a great tool to sit down and talk about the mental health of children when a family has a divorce, and what each parent can do to help in that situation. When I went through my own divorce, and I'll talk about this more in a later slide, it was very difficult to consider what to do with the children when you're in that mindset. And the court doesn't have the time or the money to deal with people who are not able to work with one another. So they send you to a court mediator who's going to help you mediate that concern. But for me, I was forced to go to court-ordered mediation. And court-ordered mediation was not something that was healthy for my family. And it ended up being something that was harmful instead. And so this is the topic that I wanted to pose in the end: court-ordered mediation versus voluntary mediation and trauma. Because we all know we've been court-ordered to mediation, but we would rather be volunteering our time into mediation, right? We would rather have the parties come to mediation knowing that's what they want to do, knowing that they want to come to a mutual interest decision, right? But when it's court ordered, you don't come to the mediation with that mindset. You come to the mediation with a very different mindset. For me, for someone who had gone through trauma and abuse, I had come to the mediation scared and unsure and not willing to be in a room with, my abuser who was continuing to abuse me throughout the mediation. And that led me to, how do we talk about that in this form, in this setting? And that brought me back to trauma bonding. Trauma bonding occurs when you have an abuser and a victim in a relationship. And when you're trying to divorce and go through mediation, this person has that in this dynamic, the abuser already has criticism, manipulation, gaslighting, trust, and dependency from the other person into the trauma bond. So you have, trust and dependency coming from the person who's being harmed, and you have manipulation, gaslighting, and criticism coming from the abuser. And in a mediation, it can be very quiet, but undertone still happening. So for us, the court-ordered mediator had no idea what was going on, but there were signs that she could have picked up on, right? And if she had been trained in trauma, she would have hopefully seen that there were signs that she should have separated us. But the court-ordered mediator didn't actually have time to do a full mediation and separate the parties and do, shuttle diplomacy. She didn't have time for that. It was a very short amount of time. So, which brings me back to, is it a good idea to have parties, be court ordered to mediation, especially when trauma is involved? Or do we, hope that voluntarily the people who are going through a traumatic situation will be able to walk through their trauma and through their mediation together?
But tell me, Erin, at what stage were you sent for mediation?
So we were separated for about a month before we were sent to mediation, and the court ordered it. The judge said to us, you will go to mediation and you will figure this out, or I will figure it out for you and you will not like the result. So it was very scary. It was, I have to make this work, or my children might be actually living with their father, and that's not safe. So it was a very scary situation, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't have an advocate, and the court is overloaded and didn't have anyone to help me understand what was going on. And like I said, the mediator was doing her best, but very overloaded. We were not the only couple in mediation at the same time. She was dealing with several people at the same time.
I think this is something that's specific. I think separately we should be discussing this aspect, because it's quite serious. Everyone keeps talking about it and then takes that model and wants to duplicate it in other part of the world. It's just not fair to put people through this, and also to create that perception of mediation in people's mind, because that word will go around, but how you perceive mediation is going to be different. Please don't get me into the conversation. You won't be able to finish your slides.
I'm coming to the end of my slides. I just really wanted to wrap up, in this thought process of, is it okay? And this is something that I think we really need to be talking about in our field. And how do we help the court understand that this is not helpful, and if it were to be helpful, what would it be? And I would say voluntarily, mediate and explain why it's really important, or what the difference is between, voluntarily going or being ordered to go. And, I would really like to see a whole person approach to this in our court system. Because if we had a therapist there during the mediation, I might have been able to had my needs at least addressed or discussed during the mediation. And it might have come out during the mediation that maybe this wasn't a safe environment, and the judge needed to know maybe this wouldn't be a safe thing to do. But because of the things that, because of our trauma bond, I was so afraid of him, so afraid of the judge, so afraid of the mediation, so afraid of my children being put in a situation that they could not be put in, so afraid that I agreed to what I thought would be right, just so that I could get out of the situation and so I could get my children and feel safe, and that's not okay. That's not a rational mediation where people are safely, walking through the process together. That was something entirely different. So that's why I posed this question here today is this something that we should be working on eliminating or supporting our courts with in understanding?
Certainly.
May I ask something, dear Erin or Vikram?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't get maybe right, but is it ordered to try the procedure or to resolve the
We were
dispute?
ordered.
I didn't understand that because I had twice court-ordered mediations, which worked very well because they were ready to go there and fight. The court ordered to try the mediation first, which would be a solution of their choice. Otherwise, he will decide what is best for them. It was not a kind of threat, but it was it was ordered, of course, and it worked. Is it ordered for you to try the mediation or just to?
Oh, the judge told us you will go to mediation and work this out. If you come back to us, or if you come back to me, I will make a plan and neither one of you will be happy.
So what we'll do is, Mandy,
doesn't mean.
Yeah, what we'll do is let her finish her thing. Was it started late, so she'll let her finish her presentation, and then we'll get into the questions later. Because your session we have to start. Her session we have to start on time.
Yeah, of course.
We have another one. Yeah.
So then I also wanted to talk about one other thing that happens in mediation a lot for someone who's been through trauma, and that's trauma dumping. Talking to your mediator about everything that you've been through. And so the mediator asks a simple question, and then the simple question turns into, I was, harmed when I was a little child, and this is what happened afterwards. And I was listening to several different mediators here recently talk about the trauma dumping that happens in their office and how they get around it, and a lot of it was redirecting the conversation back to the needs of the mediation, what they're looking for, what they need. A lot of making sure that they were feeling heard, feeling valued, feeling like what they had to say was actually being, understood. And then talking about the future of what does that look like for you? What is it that you want to see occur instead of the trauma dumping? Because they will just come in and say anything and everything that has happened to them instead of focusing on what is happening right now, because maybe they haven't been heard in the past. And this is a forum where they've been given, a one-on-one support time, and that's a time that they don't get often to feel valued and heard. So they take that time to, to say everything that they've been going through. And the thing that I heard often was, the mediator on the inside saying, I'm not a therapist. You know, how do I help this person? I'm not a therapist. And so when it was just quite an interesting topic to be thinking about, you know, when someone comes to you and they need the support in mediation, but they're not sure how to navigate, and they've got all of these topics that they really want to talk about. And that's where I come back to the whole person approach. And I would love to have that therapist there in my office saying, you know, I think it's a really great time for you to go and talk with, you know, so-and-so, so that you have a moment to really get through these thoughts, and then come back and we'll work through your conflict together. I don't think we have anything like that going on right now. And I really would like to see the future of mediation go in that direction. And that is the end of my slides.
That's it, Erin? That's
Yes. I wanted to have more of a conversation, you know, of what do you see in your mediations as far as trauma goes? And, you know, is it something that you find often is afflicting, you know, the mediations that you're supporting?
And Mandy had something she was asking. Yes, Mandy, what were you saying?
I had two questions. The first was about the awareness of the trauma. And I wanted to ask you, is it to focus on present? When you talk about awareness, is it on focusing on present instead of past? And the future, finding a solution? And the second was, I would like very much to know from your personal experience, what was the scaring thing you were talking about, and to talk to us about that, if you could.
Sure. So creating
scaring in mediation. I mean, what was the scaring in mediation?
Sure. So creating mindfulness and awareness around the thoughts and emotions and behaviors that the person is experiencing during the mediation, right? So a lot of that is restating and reframing. So, you know, maybe a person is walking through this conflict and not understanding that during this conflict, they're upset about it, but they're also upset about several other things, and they just don't have that awareness that they are upset about these other things. And as the mediator, you can hear that, you know, the words that they're using, that they're upset about this over here, but they're just not bringing any awareness to it. So what they're suggesting is bringing awareness to it. Hey, it really sounds like you might be feeling, you know, upset because this is going on, or it really sounds like you're frustrated, or it sounds like you're, you know, and
how you feel in the present, huh? You mean how you feel in the present and not remembering what you felt sometime a long time ago.
And bringing awareness to those thoughts that are coming through. And hey, you know, I know you're saying that you're feeling, you know, like you're not being heard, but I'm also hearing that you said this. And when you said this, that sounds like, you know, maybe you were being heard at that time, you know, kind of just bringing an awareness to those thoughts that are negative, that are holding them back, that are consistent, that you can hear as the mediator, and reframing them in a positive or neutral way. So, you know, instead of saying reframing or restating how they're feeling and their negative thought, you can take their negative thought and restate it in a positive way. And that brings them to the present and looking towards the future, which is what this model suggests that we do as supporting people through trauma. Yep. And then your second question. So it was very scary for me because
May I ask you what my third question?
No. She has to answer the second one. Then she get to the third one.
The third is very closer to the
doesn't matter.
first.
Then you'll answer. If it answers it, then it's perfectly all right. Then otherwise you can ask it. Yeah.
Okay. So I was scared of everything at that moment. When you're in a trauma bond like that, and I had been married for 10 years. I had been abused for a lot longer than that in my life. So it was something that was normal for me when I got married to him. And it was the control that he had over me. So when I went into that mediation, and I had been controlled for 10 years and gone through everything that I had gone through, I was beaten down to a very small human. I was very meek. I didn't have the ability to stand up for myself or say what was needed because I was afraid of having the conversation that was going to upset him, that was going to cause the abuse that I'd already been going through. B, I was so scared to remove myself from the situation because of the unknown. And I had been removing myself and my children from that situation. And it was not knowing what was going to happen next. Were we going to be safe? Was he going to, harm us because he was so angry? There were so many thoughts that were going through my head. So when mediation was offered and the judge told us that we needed to go, I'd had no idea what mediation entailed back then. And I didn't know if that meant that he was going to have the ability to, manipulate and warp the mediator's thought process as well through it. And it was really just a scary process, adding all of that together. And in that time, in that space in my mind, there was no way I was going to be able to come to the prefrontal cortex and actually have a rational conversation, because inside my bodily functions were going crazy and my mind was running so much from being so scared and not understanding the process or understanding what was going to come next. And then, like I said, fear of the unknown. So there was so much fear within that mediation that there was no way that we were going to come to any form of positivity, if that makes sense.
Only thing is you have to follow the living room protocol. Someone comes in, you have to say hi to the person. Hi, Nina. People sometimes forget the living room protocol.
No worries.
Hi, Nina.
Hi, so nice to meet
bell,
all of you.
Vikram.
Hi. Just as a check, is this sometimes the microphone is too loud or too soft? How does it sound on your end?
Perfect. It's perfect.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Erin was just taking us through her own personal experience in relation to mediation and how, of course, you heard some part of it. I mean, what she had gone through in her life, and she's looking at it from that perspective that people with that kind of a situation, sometimes when they go into a mediation, does the mediator even understand that, or does the mediator need to maybe bring in some other people? We're just trying to work that out. I mean, discussing that can you just bring their person in, or are you going to send someone to say I don't know, whoever Erin thought she should have been sent to, or should that person have been brought in? So that's the kind of discussion that is what we are going through. So Mandy had a third question. Yes, Mandy, your third question.
Yeah, it was about the traumas, which some theories about trauma say that it's not, sometimes it's not the facts that are traumas by themselves, except of some cases that are very violent, but how we receive things and translate things inside us, like in traumas. Maybe you are a baby and you call your mother and she's talking to the phone, she doesn't hear you, and you believe that she has left you. So this is a time, the moment that a trauma may be created, but it is a choice. I mean, how to translate things. Of course, not generally in the early ages, but it is a choice, isn't it?
She's trying to figure out. You understood her question?
I'm I'm not sure I understand your question. So trauma,
the translation, the way we receive the facts, if we take them too much personally. If it's
Well,
only
trauma-
if we feel that we are victims of other people's, or we create our lives, I mean, isn't it something that is possible for a person to work on it and cure traumas?
Oh, yes. Yes. It's very possible to work through your trauma and to make it so that you do not have the same reactions to the same situations. You can definitely evolve your brain. Your brain's response to a perceived event is trauma. So it's a subjective experience for everyone. It's based upon your own perceptions in life, and what is traumatic for one person is not traumatic for the other, for another person. And as for me personally, I have worked through so much of my trauma that I am now able to be in a conflict without feeling like I'm going to pass out and wanting to run away, and having physiological symptoms that occur. Mindfulness is one way that I helped myself through trauma. And it was really funny when I was walking through my graduate program. I asked my professor, how do I go through this mediation? And because we were doing mock mediations, how do I do this without this, feeling in my tummy and in my heart, and, this overwhelming urge to run, and this overwhelming urge to just shut down and not say anything? How do I fight through these feelings? And he sat back and he was like, what do you mean? And thought about it for a minute. And then he said, mindfulness is probably the only thing I can say to you. And he was right. I started meditating and going through, a lot of just situations where I would feel those feelings, and then instead of running from them and shutting down, embracing them and actually letting them in and feeling them for myself. And that's what allowed me to kind of grow as a human and let go of some of the traumas. But when you've been traumatized as a child, your brain is changed chemically. And so you have to go in and rewire the way that you think, or reparent yourself in some aspects, it's very difficult. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of steady work, and it's hard. It's hard to face the inside and help yourself work through the things that you've gone through in life and come out different on the other side.
What I've done is what I'm trying to do. Let's get ChatGPT in, and on the topic, I've already done the basic part. I've already asked the question, which is, I've told
I knew you would.
Yeah, ChatGPT is a speaker in the conference and has to give a presentation on this. Let's see how you look at this presentation. It's a short one. We can always ask it to expand. So please have a look at it.
Then that's the thing right there. It's far-reaching and deeply rooted. It's based on safety, trust, choice, collaboration, and empowerment. And these things are so far deeply rooted that it can be difficult to get through them and around them in order to help yourself.
Perfect. But just go through it. Does it make sense? Do we want it to expand on it? Because maybe I'll just have ChatGPT as a speaker from the next event onwards. I don't need anyone else. Makes life so much easier for me.
And when we talked earlier about recognizing choice and creating mindfulness and awareness and of thoughts and emotions, trust is
Erin,
yes.
ChatGPT is giving its presentation. You were not letting this. Have a look at it. What am I asking you to do is just have you looked at it? Has ChatGPT looked at it? Because I won't give it a gender. Let's just say ChatGPT. So whether it's covered things, and if you feel that there was something that you missed out and it's pointed out, it'll be nice to know. Nothing much. Has something come out of it? So this
What
is
was the question? What was the question?
It's not a question. It's the presentation. It's the speaker. It's a panelist. This
yes,
is what.
In what topic? How did you ask to?
That's simple.
Just trauma. Or
This trauma-informed
trauma.
mediation is what the topic that
Okay.
Erin had picked up. So to connect participants or to bring the resources in, that is one thing I'm trying to point out. Is that something that we have to look at?
That's exactly something we have to look at. I think that's the way it has to go. We have to look at it as a whole person approach.
Okay. So what has to be done is, I'll stop this. I'll ask it something else, which I want to do, but I'm asking you the same question. Now you are a consultant to whatever courts that you have around your place, and you want to sensitize them on trauma-informed mediation. How should that mediation look like? Whatever you would want to put across, that's your consultancy to the court system. I'm going to ask ChatGPT the same thing. So please.
I would love to see our court system have a whole person approach where we have a mediation center that has, or a building or something that has the ability to house a psychiatrist and a psychologist, along with, other people that we can call on hand for expert situations. There's especially trauma-informed psychologists would be excellent. Just so that when people are going through a mediation, and let's say the court orders another mediation like that, and the judge says, hey, you're not going to like the end, so go to court or go to mediation and work it out. Then at that point, having more mediators would be excellent, because our court system only has 1 or 2 here locally. So more mediators would be great, but sitting down together at that moment with a psychologist and saying, at this time, maybe even starting with just a 5-question, questionnaire of how are you feeling? Are you able to mediate during this time? Are you feeling safe? Are you feeling comfortable? Something like that. Get into the person's frame of mind before they come in, and then sit down. If this person has marked, I'm not feeling safe and comfortable, bringing in a psychologist at that time and saying, let's talk about that. And why are you not feeling safe and comfortable? And how can we help you get there? And what do you need to get there in order to walk through this conflict? And then having advocates, because people who are traumatized or going through an abusive situation have a very difficult time standing up for themselves and saying what needs to be said for their own needs. So having someone there to advocate for their needs would be excellent as well. So those are my thoughts. Nina, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Nina
as
can't
well.
come in, right?
Well,
Nina can't come in.
it's I'm glad that you've said that. That was actually the concept of my mediation retreat. I wanted to create a safe space. It is actually a retreat, so it is a very calm space here, and we're not just working on the person's conflict, but because you have your internal conflict, but you also have what's between them and what's around them. So if I can, and I have a psychologist in-house, we have other things that we work with them, whether it's, it's a mind, body, soul, holistic approach. So we can get them to that place where they can make good decisions, because if they come into a sterile place, whether it's a courtroom or an office, already you're sort of afraid and defensive, and you're not going to be right there in that sense of fight and flight. I'm already on defensive. I'm not going to make the best decision. But if I have them in a space where they can collaborate with the other person in another sense, like we're just not even dealing with the conflict that they're coming for, but we're doing other things, they get into a better state. So I completely agree with you that, it is helpful. I wouldn't dare do it myself, meaning more, I'm not a psychologist. So I'm not about to, I can identify it, during a pre-mediation interview, especially if it's a divorce or family mediation. During that interview, I can already get a sense if there's an imbalance of power, if this person is going to be afraid, if they're in the same room with the other person, to say what they want to say, or if they've been suffering abuse, in which case mediation may not be the best choice for them, honestly, and if they're asking me things like, I want to make sure I'm not in the same room with this person, or I want to come and go at different times, there are other issues at play other than just what, childcare or, one issue that they're dealing with. So I can't be the professional to do that. And I would refer it out, or as I have a psychologist here, I would just say, hey, listen, if there's someone you want to talk to, I can refer you to this person, or it can even be a religious leader. Sometimes the respect of whatever their leader is, whether it's a priest or a rabbi or, whatever their religion is, they might feel comfortable also talking with them. So I completely agree with you that it isn't just the mediator in that room who's going to solve what's lying down deep below with their trauma, but we can identify it and we can offer that resource as well. To have someone come in and speak with them would be great. If they're open to that, we can only offer options, right? To tie it in with what we were being called in to be a panel on today with forgiveness. Or is this a different session? I'm not sure how this works.
That's a different session.
Sorry.
That's a different session. That's a different session.
I come too early.
What I'm doing is, let me just put up what ChatGPT's recommendations are.
Okay, got it. Because that's also a different form of therapy to help with trauma
What we will discuss, Nina, is the aspect of what is the role of the mediator to even, like you said, to even be able to identify whether you need some other third party coming out, some resource coming in. That by itself, is this really what even a mediator needs to do? Because it's the process, it is your process expertise. So you maybe don't even have to look at that. Just who should you bring in should be the kind of things. We'll discuss that as we go along. But I'm just putting this out so that Erin can tell us if this was what she was talking about. Is there more that she
very much so? The courts would very much need to hear about training and education, screening assessments, having a collaborative approach, creating safe places. This is all things that the courts need to be working on right now.
Perfect. So you can send this proposal. I'll copy it and send it to you. You can send this proposal to your courts. Because we don't have time now, we'll have to shut this session. So Erin, thank you very much. Your last concluding remarks. After that, your session starts Monday. Your session starts in 30 seconds. We'll have a conversation there.
It's a question.
Yeah, in your session, we'll do.
Yes, but
what happens is that social media doesn't understand that. They want your session to start on time. So we'll start that on time and we'll have a conversation there.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Erin. So any concluding remarks, Erin? Anything that you want to?
Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for walking through my computer problems with me. And it was a pleasure seeing all of you.
Thank you very much, Erin.
Thank you, Erin.
It's always been a pleasure.
Sorry, I showed up late. I thought I was early.
You weren't the only one. My computer wouldn't let me on time either. So
no, Nina, you put yourself up.